maintain its independence. We may differ politically out there, which we should anyway. But when we come here, let's safeguard the credibility, the integrity, the independence of this House, and protect our Constitution. You know, we have said time and again that indeed there are defaults. Any constitution cannot be perfect. Even the American Constitution was amended. In fact, it was amended much earlier than ours. I'm sure Honorable Baya can recall the first amendment of the American Constitution, because we happen to have had some sojourn in that land. I don't know what we are doing there. I don't know. You have to tell me. So, Madam Speaker, so this is such a time that calls for bipartisan approach. Let me conclude. Madam Speaker, if add me some 2 minutes to say something.
1 minute, please summarize.
Just two. Madam Speaker, as we do this, we must also reflect on where we are coming from as a country. In the recent past, we have had to contend with very, very, very unfortunate episodes. There is the recent remark by the Honorable Gachagua. You know, some of these remarks, some of those outbursts have got the effect of eroding the principle of the spirit of constitutionalism in this country. Madam Speaker, I was just looking at Article 27 of the Constitution. Honorable Teacher, you can help me. Article 27, sub-article 4. And I may read it for avoidance of doubt. The state shall not discriminate directly or indirectly against any person on any ground, including, among others, conscience, belief, age, color, origin, and so on and so forth. So if you come out in the open and proclaim that the state is now going to adopt an official policy to discriminate against persons or regions in this country on the basis of how they voted, then what are you calling for? What are you inviting? You are asking Kenyans to start nursing other thoughts. That if I don't subscribe to a political thought, if I am not a shareholder in your so-called company, then I must look for ways of fending for myself, including refusing to obey rules, to obey laws, and to pay tax. Then you will be calling for the rule of the jungle. You will be calling for the state of anarchy in the country. That must be condemned strongly by every other member in this House, regardless of our political persuasions. If you find yourselves in a position of responsibility, regardless of how you found yourself there, you must ensure that you conduct yourself in a manner that gives honor to that office. You must shun those primitive tendencies, regardless of...
Thank you, Honorable Pio Wandai. Honorable members, I can see there is a lot of interest, especially on the CBC motion. We only have 14 minutes on this motion. I would ask that as many can be able to contribute. We keep it short. I'll give this chance to the Honorable Daniel Carrizo, MP for Igembe Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I stand to support this motion. The motion on CDF, the motion, Madam Speaker, there are a lot of noises. I don't know if
continue, Honorable Carrizo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm standing to support this motion because it's a motion that is very important. especially on that gender rule, is a motion that we will not avoid because it's in the Constitution, that we are all saying we want to uphold and protect. And we have no way but to support this motion so that the women, or rather the gender, be protected. On the issue of having the CSs coming in this house to answer questions other than the committees, I also support it because what the committees will tell us is not what we will be told by the CSs. There, Madam Speaker, I stand to support. The issue of NG, CDF, we also support and GAF that they be protected in the Constitution. And this being the House of Legislation, I believe, Madam Speaker, the MPs have the capacity to handle the Constitution matters and make sure that all these issues are safely handled in the right manner and protected as per the Constitution. Now, Madam Speaker, I support all those amendments and I stand to support. Thank you.
Member for Sotik, Honorable Sigei. Honorable Moses Kirema, Central Imenti.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this important motion of amendment of our Constitution at this moment. Madam Speaker, it's the right time that we should come up with the amendment since our Constitution has taken place since the year 2010 up to now, even though the same Constitution has not been implemented to the letter as it is supposed to have been implemented, because there are things which have not been legislated upon. But the articles which have been being applied and they require to be changed or to be amended, is the right time that we should touch on them. Madam Speaker, if you look at the part of the constituencies which are said to be have been protected by the Constitution up to the year 2024, we have only 1 year, that's 2023. And by the time of the year 2024, some constituencies may not be seeing the light of the day because they will be scrapped, for they have not met the requirements of the tenants as it is supposed to be in the Constitution as it comes to the population threshold. So, Madam Speaker, it's the time that we should allow the amendment of this Constitution in despite of the source where it has emanated from, because what's important is the amendment of the Constitution. Even though when it comes to that stage of amendment, I will bring that idea of amending the Constitution so that at least the constituencies which have been sent to be threatened by the existence of the Constitution, or whereby if they have not met the threshold, they are supposed to be scrapped off. As I heard a colleague of mine here saying that they should be scrapped off if that moment come in. We will come with an amendment to see that they still continue to exist. For if people have been given a chance to have a constituency, and now you come to tell them that those constituencies shouldn't be struck off, Madam Speaker, that won't be a source or recipe of chaos. Now, as I sit down, the idea of amending the Constitution to entrench the CDF and GAF should be at least accommodated by every member in this parliament. For without that one, we are being left at the mercy of those who call shots of the day, possibly the executive, because they may decide that today we are going to have CDF and somebody else come in the same office tomorrow and says that we should not have it. We are the mercy of activists in this Republic of Kenya, whereby activists sleep one night, the following day, they go to court and they say that CDF is not in the Constitution. That's why I'm supporting the Constitution amendment so that we can have GAF and CDF in the Constitution. When it comes to having CSs, cabinet secretaries coming in this house, we address it at the right time when it comes. Because I still believe, as far as I'm concerned, having gone through that Constitution and being one of those people who did a campaign for this Constitution in the year 2010, those are strangers in this house. In despite of the side which I am in the house, those are strangers. Let's not mix once. They are strangers. As an advocate, I will not be intimidated by anybody to support what is wrong. It is wrong and it is wrong. But what is right, we are supposed to support it. That's all, Madam Speaker. I support the motion as it is.
Honorable Abdul Haro, Mandera South.
Honorable Speaker, sorry, I had contributed to this motion last week.
Thank you. Honorable members, please note if you've contributed, you cannot contribute twice to the same motion. This chance will go to member for Dagoretti North, Honorable Beatrice Elachi. I see she's not in the house. Next chance will go to Honorable Paul Biego, Chesumei. Okay, not in the house. Honorable Robert Mbui, Kathiani. You have contributed. Honorable Julius Ruto, Keses.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity you accorded me to make a contribution on the motion before us. I think this motion is a continuation of what we had already discussed in the previous session, where all of us are of the interest that CDF, NGAV, and any other related decentralized fund is a fund that was designed to bring out the equalization among our communities and across the board in the country, Kenya. I know over time it has come a lot of challenges because of the related acts, and those people who have tried to divine the placement of these particular funds. But when you look at the spirit of the same fund, and from the feedback of the intended support people, they really appreciate that the fund has really transformed their livelihood. To avoid all these shenanigans and all these legal litigations here and there, we all know that Constitution is the supreme law of the country. And it's from the Constitution that we derive the powers, we derive the legislations, we derive the orders, we derive the functions and the applicability of all these particular laws. So I stand to support that it is high time that when such opportunity has come, let us all of us embrace the discussion for the good and for the benefit of the people of Kenya, as it is stipulated in Article 1, that all these powers belong to the people of Kenya. I know this amendment to the Constitution also has come with other proposals, including that the Parliament can allow the CSS to come in here so that they can be cross-examined, they can be questioned by the whole representative of the people, which in my case, that is a debatable discussion. And if it is for the good of the people of Kenya, that the CSS come across here, we subject them to cross-discussion questions, and for them to explain themselves to Kenyans here, then be it be good. Though there are several schools of thought here, about legal minds are telling us when they are here, we'll have mixed up the kind of the system of administration from presidential and parliamentary. But it is good for us to discuss and look at the objective and the spirit in these amendments, so that we're able to progressively improve governance and citizen participatory in matters of governance, so that we're able to establish good governance in this country, Kenya. That the Kenyans who have had confidence in the elected people should be able to transparently participate and follow up decisions that are being made for the good and for the benefit of them. So I stand to support the motion, and in this case that we need to protect this fund so that CDF, NGAV would be able to assist what ought to have been done by the national government with the challenges they are facing in terms of procurement system, lengthy processes of executing this process would be brought down to where the people are. And I believe it is not in any way complicating what devolution is doing, because devolution has got its own distinct function and the fourth schedule, clearly describing the mandate and the resources that have been earmarked for the same functions. And for this one, it's a national government function, only that it is being simplified through the local unit of constituency or a county in terms of county members of parliament. So I tend to support the motion, and I say that it is high time we look at it. And in any case, Constitution, those who promoted the Constitution, I remember there was some discussion that there would be some few issues that ought to have been looked at that time. And all of us agreed that let us pass this Constitution, and then progressively we can bring in the amendments. And I feel after 10 years, already now we have served to be informed by this Constitution. Do know the challenges, the hiccups, the shortcomings, and it is as good because what now we are doing is informed by the experience that we have encountered through implementation of the said Constitution. So I want to implore upon this House that let us embrace this discussion and take it as an opportunity to straighten, to align where challenges is being experienced, so that as we're able to see the smooth operationalization of this Constitution and for the ultimate benefit of the core objective as to why the Constitution 2010 was brought in by the people of Kenya, who are the sovereign people of this country. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I stand to support this discussion. Thank you.
Other members, I can see there's still a lot of interest, and this motion is not as limited, so it will go on. But right now, for the convenience of the House, we will move to the very important adjournment motion as deliberated and approved by the Speaker, by Honorable Kaluma, set for 4 p.m. And this motion, the mover will have 10 minutes. Any other member will have 5 minutes. I want you to actually get that very well. 5 minutes only. So I would like to invite the member for Homa Bay, Honorable Kaluma, to move the motion.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the following motion regarding the ongoing challenges being faced in the implementation of the competency-based curriculum within the education system. Honorable Speaker, there is great anxiety among parents, among pupils, among students, among people across the country over the implementation of the competency-based program, more particularly the aspect dealing with the junior secondary schools. And Honorable Speaker, because I'd moved initially when I sought leave, let me indicate that it has been reported, and it is common knowledge, that so many of our pupils who are in Standard 7 across the country are being registered by their parents to do Kenya Certificate of Primary Education as if they were in Standard 8, simply because parents and pupils are anxious about what is happening. Honorable Speaker, there is lack of capacity for optimal operationalization of the system given the state of infrastructure and in the public schools and of course personnel. Honorable Speaker, I think this thing is being operationalized across the country. When you go to Homa Bay Town constituency, Honorable Speaker, you have a single teacher who are recently recruited being posted in each and every primary school where the junior secondary school is domiciled. And Honorable Speaker, we all went to secondary school. The teachers in secondary schools are people who are trained in specific areas. If you're a teacher of CRE, it may be CRE and history, or English and literature. We have a situation where there is a single teacher trained in English and literature posted to a school as the sole teacher in that secondary school, and is being required to teach, Honorable Speaker, 12 mandatory subjects plus 2 optional ones. So you can imagine a teacher trained to teach history, and then this teacher who never interacted with mathematics is to teach mathematics, is to teach physics,
is to teach home science, is to teach chemistry, is to teach biology, is to teach computer studies as an option, is to teach all those courses. We have a situation where because of that, parents don't have clarity about where this CBC program is ended. And no wonder we have now a situation where Standard 7 pupils are well-dressed, Honorable Speaker. They wear very beautiful neckties. They are wearing trousers. In the same school, the Standard 8s are wearing some shorts, very old shorts. And you have a secondary teacher whose head teacher, Honorable Speaker, is the primary teacher. Essentially, we have a situation in the country where we are pretending to be implementing a program. And I'm happy Honorable Mboko Milembas is listening keenly. But no meaningful learning is happening in the country. And Honorable Speaker, I know previously there were attempts by this House to discuss the whole matter of CBC. But each time the House had this motion before it, some Kenyan went to court, and so we were strangled by the issue of sub judice. I want to request that there be proper review. If we are going to implement this program, and Honorable Speaker, I'm saying I have no problem with CBC if it is deemed fit for this country. But let there be proper facilities. We don't have facilities in those primary schools where the junior secondary school is domiciled. And look, we thought all primary schools will be implementing this program. But what is happening now, in my constituency, the constituency I represent, not all primary schools are offering the curriculum. So you get some primary schools have been allocated. These schools don't have sister secondary schools. And so you have pupils floating there, not knowing whether they are secondary school students or not. It is chaotic. If we were bold as Parliament, I would have recommended, Honorable Speaker, that we have a serious relook as government. For the first time, we have something affecting the education sector, a matter over which Parliament, as the House of Representatives, have not properly deliberated in terms of policy and in terms of even the framework that is governing it. If it were upon me, this thing would have been stopped and we have a review. Honorable Speaker, we did our studies under the old 844, not this one which was diluted later. Honorable Speaker, by the time I was done with Standard 8 in the old 844, I had done arts, we had done craft, we were carving, we were doing necklaces as beautiful as the one our Honorable Speaker is wearing now. We had done tie and dye, we had done embroidery, we would do patterns, we were cooking ugali, awimbi, and chapati. Honorable Speaker, we were doing agriculture and animal husbandry. We knew what fertilizer to apply on what crops and how to apply it and at what time. We knew how to do compost manure. We knew mulching, propping, staking. I would look at any animal, Honorable Speaker, and determine with near 90% probability the disease it was suffering from. We knew how to castrate bulls. We would de-own cows. We knew what cow needed a bull just by look. Honorable Speaker, we were so enriched that you would finish your Standard 8, you do your KCPE, and you go and you start your agriculture somewhere. Over time, we diluted that. I would have wished that Kenyans be listened to before this implementation, and I don't know why this rush. It is unfortunate we are where we are. But I'm grateful for this opportunity that we raise this matter as the representatives so that these challenges can be put together. And Honorable Speaker, I believe the Ministry of Education is watching. Today, I want us to talk about these challenges. But if they cannot be picked by the ministry for the good of all Kenyans, I would not mind this House of Representatives resolving that we stop this CBC and we continue in a form of education that give meaning to the children of the poor people. Honorable Speaker, do you know what is happening now? For those of us who have money, our children are going to private schools now, and they're going into international schools. For those who could maneuver, their children, and Honorable Meli will confirm, are being registered to do Standard 8 before they do Standard 7. The people who are suffering, Honorable Speaker, are the children of that poor person who can only go into a public school. I want to request members that we deliberate, we discuss this issue dispassionately. If there are issues which can be picked in terms of bettering the program, we do so. One of the things we must insist on is that if we are going to have junior secondary schools, then, Honorable Speaker, we must have sufficient number of teachers with necessary expertise to proceed. Honorable Speaker, with that so that members can have enough time to deliberate, I beg to move and I urge the support of members so that we can inform the implementation of the competency-based curriculum and more particularly the junior secondary school. I move, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kaluma. This chance will go to the MP, Honorable Meli Tinderet.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to speak to this motion by Honorable Peter Kaluma on the issue of CBC. First of all, I want to agree with Honorable Kaluma that CBC as a new curriculum has several teething issues, has a number of challenges. It has issues concerning infrastructure, it has issues concerning the teaching staff, it has issues, a number of issues. That is common with every other new educational system and new curriculum. But however, this is quite a very good curriculum for this country, Honorable Speaker and members. First of all, I want to laud the officers who went all the way to design this new education system. I know many people in the country, and even Kenyans at large and across the world, are always not interested or actually do not like a new system. I do remember, as Honorable Kaluma knows very well, that when the 844 was started around 1984-85, Kenyans were up in arms. And they were always saying, let us go back to the 7 years in primary, 6 years in high school, and 3 at the university. That was as a result of a novelty, something that was introduced. But let me just come back to the CBC. I think it was in this house, this parliament, in the 12th parliament, that we did pass the sessional paper that brought CBC here. It was in this house that members of this house went through the various curriculum circle designs that the Ministry of Education, the officers, actually took this country through. As much as the whole system was started from PP1, unlike in the 844 where it was introduced at class 7, this one has been introduced at PP1 or PP1 and PP2 all the way to grade 6. The designs were done. All the teaching and learning areas have been put in place. The issue that I know is of contention here is the issue of teaching staff. Honorable members, I just want to say this. As the Kenya Kwanza administration, I think it was a pledge in our plan that this government employs 116,000 teachers in 5 years. This year, we've employed 36,000 teachers. 30,000 of those are for junior secondary. Apart from that, the Committee of Education has implored on Teacher Service Commission to get qualified teachers in primary schools. Qualified teachers in primary schools who can teach secondary schools to be posted to junior secondary. We have issues of infrastructure that I know is common in almost all schools in the Republic. But the money that we have currently, that is why yesterday, I know our committee went to the Budget and Appropriation Committee, asking them to give us infrastructure money that will be able to put up to, so that every junior primary school will have a lab. So, Honorable Speaker, this is the system of education that is going to make Kenyans equal. It will ensure that we are going to have one school system where a child will start from PP1 to grade 9 to grade 12 in the same school. A few weeks ago, a number of honorable members here were running up and down trying to place students in elite schools of Alliance, Kapsabet Boys, Butere Girls, Kisumu High School, and the rest. But now with the CBC, all the schools in the Republic will be brought to the same standards. There will be no school, an elitist school like Alliance Boys or in Mangu School or any other school. We'll have schools that cut across the Republic. Two, this issue of moving a child from school A to school B and to school C will be a thing of the past. I want to implore on members that let this House give the requisite resources to employ enough teachers, to build enough laboratories, to build enough classrooms so that this kind of education will run throughout the country. And it will stop where we have. I heard Honorable Kaluma just saying that members will take their children to private schools. As we speak today, the curriculum that is implemented is the CBC curriculum. I do not think there is any private school, maybe the international schools, that are doing other curriculums. But all the private registered schools in the Republic are doing CBC. The issue of teachers maybe trying to take students, to loop the students from grade 7 to 8 so that they avoid the system is a common practice, even in the other system. We had the same crop of teachers trying to avoid the 844 by just going to the older system of education.
Honorable Meli, since you're the chair of education, I'll give you 2 minutes to finish up.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, thank you so much for that. I also want to point out that the teaching service, that is why we did as a committee, told the Teacher Service Commission to move with speed, identify those teachers who are qualified. As we speak today, members, we have a number of teachers who are graduates in primary schools. They are qualified and they can teach in the junior secondary schools. Thousands of them. By last week, they said they had identified 10,000. And we told them every junior secondary school should have a minimum of 4 teachers. And the reforms that Honorable Kajwang has just said is quite in order. Every education system after 3 or 4 years is reviewed. And as we speak today, there is a review, there's a task force reviewing the CBC system. There is an outcry by parents that the subjects at the teaching areas are too wide. From 12, it can be reviewed backwards to 8 or to 6. I remember the pioneers of 844. They had 12 teaching areas. But as we speak today, the current crop of 844 students are doing 5 subjects. Every educational system can be reviewed, can be looked into, the challenges can be minimized, and even the areas that we see are difficult, we can talk to it and we'll be able to rectify them. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to support and say that let this system continue, let us review the areas that are there, and let us make sure that CBC is a success in our country for now and for future generations. I thank you and I support the CBC. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Meli. I know we have very many teachers in this house who are asking to be given opportunities, but I can see there is a lot of interest. So the shorter we keep it, the more members speak. This chance will go to the member for Marsabit. Honorable Wako.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this. Madam Speaker, this is the right time to talk of CBC curriculum in our country because of what the country is going through. Madam Speaker, 844 system has served this country for the last many years, and now it is time for us to replace that with CBC. But what I want to say is there is a lot of cry in the country. Parents are concerned, and there is a lot of confusion. What we need to do as a country is to give ourselves time to do enough so that we get out of the confusion that is affecting the parents and the children. Again, the other thing that we can see is CBC is quite expensive and tedious to the people, and that is affecting, as I said, it is affecting the entire nation, and that is why we need to see how we can review the entire thing and also prepare the teachers, because the teachers seems to have not been prepared well. There is a confusion on curriculum, and even preparing the parents. The infrastructure is not in place, and we need enough time to prepare. In as much as I support the new curriculum to take place, I would want us to give it more time so that we prepare ourselves, we prepare the teachers, we also prepare the children so that they can easily move on to this other new system. Madam Speaker, I support and I suggest that we give ourselves a bit of time. Thank you.
Member for Suna East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to also contribute to the debate. Madam Speaker, I don't want to disagree with the chairman of the education sector. Madam Speaker, we must admit that there is a crisis in our country about the education sector. That we must admit because it is really on the ground, it is happening. Madam Speaker, whether it is by default or design, the transition from is it junior or whatever it is called, to senior, Madam Speaker, was never done properly. One teacher per school, no classes. The Ministry of Education on their own, said that almost 200,000 students have not transitioned to junior secondary school. Where are those students? They must be tangatangering in the cities and the villages, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, if this matter is not arrested as fast as possible, the crisis could get bigger than this, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are sectors in this country that you can experiment with. But there are sectors also that you cannot do experiment on it. The education sector is an example, and the health sector. Because those things affect the ordinary citizens. Madam Speaker, we must bring to the attention of this House that this crisis of high monumental, and if this House does not come up with a resolution on how to deal with this matter, this country is going to get into a serious crisis that they may not be able to handle in the future. I know the way Honorable Kaluma said, majority of members here have their children in private schools, and some of them don't give birth anymore because they're old people. And some of them have gone to university and finished. They are elders here, and others have taken to private school. Madam Speaker, the ordinary Kenyan there is suffering. The ordinary Kenyan there does not understand what CBC means. I was in a school in my constituency the other day, last parliament, and I was told they had been taken to a bus, that they had been taken to an animal farm so that the students can familiarize themselves with animals, with goats, cows, and chicken. Those villagers know those things. That is their way of life. Madam Speaker, if you look at the proportion of teachers to students in every CBC class, Madam Speaker, you'll be shocked. So, Madam Speaker, I want to urge from both sides of the House that we must take action as fast as possible. And I think, as the chairman has said, a solution might not be to go back to the 844 system that we all went through, even though that was the real CBC, Madam Speaker. This CBC, we used to make aeroplanes with papers. You remember, Madam Speaker? Unless you are, I'm sure you are young, you are not old, Madam Speaker. So you remember those things. So, Madam Speaker, if action is not taken, I'm repeating for the last time in my conclusion, Madam Speaker, let me not say that, but action must be taken and Kenyans must be saved from this issue of CBC once and for all. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you for keeping it short. If we do that, many of us will get a chance to speak. Honorable Robert Mbui, member for Kathiani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity for also getting to contribute to this very, very serious motion. Madam Speaker, any country that wants to grow and to progress obviously has to invest heavily in education. I mean, some of the countries that were similar to Kenya at independence, the Malaysias of this world, invested properly in education. And this is a sector, like the minority whip has said, we cannot play around with it. The fact is that there is a major crisis, and there is a crisis in the implementation of the CBC system. And the worst thing about it, Madam Speaker, is that this is not a system that started last year.
This is a system that started 7 years ago. So 7 years ago, those honchos in Elimu House knew that there would be junior secondary, they knew there would be senior secondary, and they knew they had to prepare for it. But, Madam Speaker, what I am seeing is a spirit of confusion, which we must find a way to deal with. Because, look, Madam Speaker, first and foremost, because I want to qualify the spirit of confusion, JSS classes were built in secondary schools. Then the implementation of JSS now is being done in primary schools, where there are no classes. Madam Speaker, grade standards class 7 students are in primary school, are in secondary school, while class 8 students are still in primary school. Madam Speaker, further confusion is when you find class 7 students wearing trousers and our bigger brothers, their bigger brothers are still in shorts, in a more junior school. And let me tell you, I've observed this, that the Ministry of Education came up with a plan, and they said not every primary school will be allowed to have junior secondary school. So they said that in some of the schools, the children will be moved to other schools. What has happened is that grade 7 students have left a school which had a class that was already built with teachers, have gone to another school where there is no new class, they've increased the population in that class, and there are no extra teachers. I mean, what is more confusing than that? Madam Speaker, I think we really have a problem. And then, of course, my colleague, the Honorable Kaluma, has said that the idea of a teacher teaching 14 subjects is totally unusual and totally impossible. So, Madam Speaker, I think it's important that we deal with this thing properly. There are not even enough textbooks. Madam Speaker, some of the subjects, like art and music, don't even have textbooks up to now. Because nobody wants to invest in something that is going to be optional, and they're not too sure how many people will buy. So we have a problem even of the basic materials required for this system. And Madam Speaker, what has happened and what is most annoying for us is during this period of drought and hardship, head teachers in some of these schools have taken advantage, introduced admission fees, introduced fees for new uniform, and uniform is not necessary. Children can finish school with the clothes they were wearing before. They have to carry new lockers. They could have used the ones that they were using before. And now they've even introduced school feeding programs because now they're in grade 7, it is called secondary. Now they have to start paying fees. It's really unfortunate. It's something that we need to completely condemn with the strongest terms possible. So, Madam Speaker, for me, I think the rain started beating us when we allowed the Ministry of Education to completely disregard Article 94, Part 5, which says that no person can make provision having the force of law except Parliament. If we had put our foot down when this thing was being started, we would have been able to discuss further and been able to sort it out. My proposal is that all primary schools must be allowed, Madam Speaker, to continue having junior secondary schools. The idea of moving children from one school to another, I think it's preposterous. It is important that they continue where they are. I heard the chair of education saying when a child starts in grade 1, they should go all the way up to grade 9 and all the way up to grade 12. Why are they then chasing them now? A lot of children will drop out. A lot of children are discouraged. So it's important that we do that. And finally, we must invest in classes and labs in all our primary schools for this system to work. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, we need to deal with the confusion. Maybe we may put it up for prayers because I know we are a praying nation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Majority Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this is the very first time I'm tempted to agree with Honorable Robert Mbui. And I don't know how, from what side he woke up this morning, because we seem to be agreeing everything the entire day, from the morning interview on Citizen and now about CBC. And with this trend, he'll also agree with me that William Ruto is the president, because we are agreeing virtually over everything. But, Honorable Speaker, this thing about CBC is something that really this House needs to make a serious recommendation and stand firm over it. And it's becoming something that is very, very expensive. Majority of the members of this House happen to represent constituencies from remote areas. Different places, the way our country is set up in such a way that most of the constituencies are from the rural areas. And, but when you look at the formation and the structure of CBC, it focuses on the targets of the rich and the people who live within the urban setup. I think for some reason, Honorable Speaker, somebody wanted to rush this whole thing about CBC for whatever reason that befits them then. And I think it's important for government to realize that this, it wasn't part of our plan, by the way. This wasn't part of the Kenyan plan. It wasn't part of the manifesto by the Kenya Kwanza. This was a setup. This was a hub for somebody to make money in the previous administration. And there is need for us to review that. It's very important for this education committee that sit here to realize that. Because parents are struggling. Back in the village, parents are struggling. We all represent constituencies. Every day, students are sent home for something. You know, nowadays, teachers, and I say this with a lot of respect, some teachers, not all teachers, rogue teachers, sit in the staff room and decide that the afternoon lesson is to learn how to cook chicken. And they decide and say, all the students should go at home and come with chicken so that we can practice. And then they start, what is the teacher doing? The teacher is cooking chicken. What is the teacher doing? The nurse is eating chicken.
Order, member. Order, Honorable Osoro. There is a point of order. Honorable Mboko Milemba.
Oh, no. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Leader respected, I don't think CBC itself is being defeated simply because of teachers. This is a very weighty matter that requires thinking through and not just blaming the teachers. And there are no teachers, Honorable Member, who are even teaching how to eat chicken. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Continue, Honorable Osoro, without casting aspersions on teachers. I want to warn you, the population of teachers here is quite some.
Honorable Speaker, it's important to say that my late father was a teacher, and I have tremendous respect for the teachers. What I said is that in...
Honorable Rosa, what's your point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, is the former Speaker in order in suggesting that in this country there is no curriculum in our education system, that any teacher can wake up any day and decide what to teach. That if a teacher wakes up how to cook chicken, she can go ahead with it. Is the Speaker, the former Speaker, in order in suggesting that we don't have a curriculum in our system that the teachers follow?
Sorry, Speaker, I am not a former Speaker, so I don't think that question was referred to me. I should ignore it. But I wanted to say this, that the whole thing has, I don't know, it wasn't, I think she wasn't referring to me. There is a former Speaker seated somewhere, I think, in this plenary. But, Speaker, Madam Speaker, when I use the context of chicken, I don't really mean that teachers do that. I'm saying that people, some rogue teachers have decided to misuse, not generally, some. Because we've actually seen such scenarios across. But even before we finish these orders, I want to make my point, and I'm sure, I don't know why Honorable McClapp is really making a lot of noise.
Honorable members,
allow me to...
I would pray, Honorable Osoro and members, that we do not abuse the point of orders.
Please.
Be relevant, because I see members are using them to debate.
Okay. But I want to withdraw. Teachers are never rogue. They just like chicken. But as I said, they're never rogue. They like chicken. But, Speaker, that thing has been misused. The other day, last week, and I think it's very important for me to say this, I went to visit somebody in Diani, and I found students, the grade 6 students, just besides somewhere that I'm trying to put up somewhere in the coastal region. And I found students, grade 6, who were supposed to graduate to grade 7, seated by the road. And they could not be admitted in school because they did not have school uniforms. They did not have some, things that are required, like several requirements. And when I asked for that form, what I saw written in that form as requirements for a student transiting to grade 7 shocked me. Things that parents cannot afford. Things that, like you're telling a grade 6 student, now you're transiting to grade 7, you are giving them serious, expensive requirements for a parent who was preparing to save money for Form 1. I think we really rushed this thing. There is need for the government to review this CBC thing. And I do not know where these people of the committee of, CBC or something, I don't know what they are doing. Where did they move? They did not even come. I think these people are sitting somewhere eating mandazi and then go there and do recommendations that are funny. Honorable Speaker, I implore on this House to find a way to reverse this system back to the system that we all know. And then we gradually start moving. We do it gradually. Equip our schools. Look here, as we are speaking here today, members of parliament do not have adequate funds for CDF. Today we have about 33 million. We are being told we need to do labs for purposes of JSS. The Minister of Education does not have money. Equalization fund is not sufficient across the country. And then we are here being told, CBC is important. Let's support it. Let's support it. We are representatives of the people. We are not stupid by going through 844 or 76 or something. We are very sharp people here. Let's revert to the previous system. Let's revert to the 844 so that our students and the rural constituencies can progress. And I think the chair for Education Committee has heard me, and this is very clear. Thank you very much.
Member for Githongori, Gathoni wa Mushomba.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to indeed, as a trained teacher, to give my contribution into this motion. It is sad and very sad that we are debating the future of the people God has entrusted unto us, to shape their future, to give them life and hope. Those wonderful children that are going through this system, the CBC. It is unfortunate, Madam Speaker, that in this country, we do not give weight to the Ministry of Planning, whose core business is to plan the economy of this country. In fact, the most lucrative ministries in this country are ministries of health, ministries of agriculture, ministry of water and land, not because we find them worth giving them weight, but because they control a lot of money. We ignore the critical ministries like Ministry of Planning and Finance, the ministry that is supposed to be giving us economic planning, well contributed and well thought, that is supposed to have advised us on the CBC before implementation. Like one of my colleagues have said, Madam Speaker, I still as a teacher do not understand why we had to go the 1,000,000 kilometers rush to implementing CBC. I do not know the people who sat in a certain boardroom and decided that they are going to implement CBC, even against the advisory that was given by the then Cabinet Secretary, Madam Amina. Madam Amina spoke very strongly against CBC implementation without thorough thinking and planning. But I do not know the kind of motivation that was behind the so-called the government of the day, that we had to take a risk to mess a generation in this country by hurriedly implementing a system that has not been framed properly. Madam Speaker, as a mother, it pains me to walk into schools like in my constituency and find 4 learners in a school which is supposed to be a JSS center. 4 learners. How do we employ 4 teachers for 4 learners? How do we put a laboratory for 4 learners? How do we buy equipment in the laboratory for 4 learners? Where are economic planners that are supposed to be advising the governments of the day? What are they doing and why do we pay them a salary in those offices that they sit? Madam Speaker, it is sad that we are politicizing the life of a generation of this country. We must come fresh and real to what we are doing. It is time we asked ourselves whether we are doing justice to the seats that we've been given by the people of Kenya. They have elected us so that we can advocate for the rights of their children. Most of these parents do not have a voice. We have a voice. Most of these teachers we are talking about and joking around here in Parliament, because I can see a joke here, they have no voice. We have a voice. We must stop politicizing CBC and become the parents God has made us to be. We must become the leaders that have been elected honorably to stand in the gap and save a generation. How many children are at home right now because they cannot afford uniform for JSS? How many children are at home right now because they cannot afford a desk? Madam Speaker, shockingly, these are the same children, runners who are in primary school. They had a desk, but just because they have graduated to JSS, they are being forced to buy a fresh and a new desk. For what purpose, Madam Speaker? It is us that God has entrusted us to do it. It is us the whole country is looking upon. It is us who are supposed to advise, and we must stand in the gap and provide a sober direction for JSS. If we cannot be able to implement JSS, we would rather stop it and get back to the drawing board and look for a solution, because we are going to be asked by God, why did you not do what you're supposed to have done? I do not understand the rush. I do not understand the thinking behind JSS if we cannot be able to implement. Madam Speaker, please, I want to be heard. One day, one time, if we ever go to heaven, that we read there, we shall be asked a question. I don't know what you will answer as a member of Parliament. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Irene Mayaka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this very important motion. Honorable Speaker, when you do a cursory look at some of the countries that have been able to do CBC and implement it, like France, Canada, Finland, those are countries that have fantastic infrastructure. The idea behind CBC was a fantastic idea. The level of interactions that you see with our children has been great. But then again, this cannot be implemented in our country because we don't have the proper infrastructure. The beginning, success, and failure of CBC starts and ends with proper infrastructure. Madam Speaker, one of the things that I see a lot of parents grappling with is that they're forced to download and print different things. So you can imagine a student who is down there in Nyamira, in Nyamotentemi, and they're told that they need to download things for their children, and they don't even have, number one, access to electricity, not even access to, proper access to internet connectivity. Madam Speaker, this country has a long way to go. Let's agree with that. Our children are suffering, and a lot of hidden costs are hidden behind this CBC issue. Honorable members here have been speaking about parents being asked to pay for desks, parents being asked to pay for new uniforms, things that they cannot even afford. And these problems come back to the CDF factor, because the same elected leaders are the ones that parents are looking up to for them to provide bursaries, which again, we can't even do because the courts are also fighting the CDF. So Madam Speaker, what I want to say, and I support the fact that we allowed this very important motion to take priority, is that as a country, we need to make decisions. Madam Speaker, when you look at some of the students who started with CBC, especially from very young, there are those who did not even taste 844. And for these ones, these are the ones that I really feel sorry for. Because if we decide as a country we are going back to 844, then what happens to them? Where do they begin from? Do they have to do a crash course so that they can also get to know what 844 is all about? Because they never got to experience 844. These are the students that we really need to look at. And maybe the solution wouldn't be that we go back to 844. The actual solution should be that can we find a style of doing CBC that works for everyone? Not only for those of us who are in the urban setup, but those who are in the rural setup. Because the ones who are affected the most are actually the students and pupils who are back in the rural setup. Again, Madam Speaker, the CBC competence exams normally examine students based on your talents and your level of competence. Sometimes these are things that you are not able to actually put on paper and structure and say that this is how they're being tested. Because how do you then know that this student has a talent in in writing, and this other one does not have a talent in writing, they have a talent in speaking. So do you then give the one who has a talent in writing a lower grade in speaking and the other way around, just because they don't have the same level of competence? Madam Speaker, and as I conclude also, I just want to speak about the teachers. Because the teachers who are teaching CBC have been given almost 14 subjects. These same teachers are parents to pupils and children who are doing CBC. So what time do they have to commit to their children when they go back at home in the evening? Because we also need to be fair as a country. And as I wind up, Madam Speaker, I just want to say that sometimes, yes, benchmarking is good, but also as a country, before we run to benchmark and adopt systems from other countries, we need to first of all be realistic and compare the kind of infrastructure that we have in a country. I know for a fact, like for example, the countries that I gave an example of, in Kenya, we really wanted to adopt the Finland system. But look at where Finland is versus where Kenya is right now. And Madam Speaker, even when we say that implementing this is not easy, again, we have heard from the Kwanza government that there's no money. So where do we even get money in the first place to start to do some of these things? So Madam Speaker, as leaders of this country, I think this is an issue that needs to be dealt with at a higher level. It probably needs to be considered as a national emergency so that proper planning can be taken into taking care of this, because our children are suffering. I thank you.
Asante sana mbunge wa Lungalunga, Mangale, Chiforomodo.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. CBC is now being judged by where it came from. First, let me say, Madam Speaker, the problem began with the process of initiating CBC. Because then, as a country, we woke up one day and said that we are implementing CBC. In any case, if we are starting a new curriculum or a new system, there is a process. But the process was never followed at the first place. We just rushed and took grade 3 onwards that they are in CBC. While in the real sense, we ought to have prepared our colleges so that we get professionals who will attend to the pupils in the CBC classes, right from ECD to the highest grade, that's in the university. The professionals were never prepared. When we talk about infrastructure, the infrastructure ought to have thought earlier before even the implementation. Today, we are lamenting about the infrastructure as in desks and labs and all that. They are not there because the process was never followed. In fact, we ought to have invested in the infrastructure before even implementing. But more so, we would have started from the ECD, going gradually to where we are, but it was rushed. Now what we are saying, and what I would wish to contribute in this honorable house, we have to go back, because then there is no way we can expose our children now to CBC pretending that all is well and not all is not well. I want to concur with the majority whip that we have to do away with CBC as it stands. It's not too late to stop it where it has reached, because we can talk of cost. It cannot be implemented because it is very expensive. Infrastructure is not there. Even the teachers themselves, we are saying that they've been posted. Yes, they are teaching, they have 2 teaching subjects, let's say chemistry, physics. Well, but they are not trained to teach CBC. They have been trained in the university to teach 844. So the problem is much bigger than what we see. So I would suggest that as a country, we are not ready for CBC. Comparing us with other countries who have implemented CBC is not a crime, yes, because we are not comparing ourselves on how rich they are or how poor we are, but it is about how preparedness, how we are, how prepared we are as far as CBC is concerned. We have a long way to go. If we push on saying that we are implementing CBC, we are killing a generation. And this thing will not take us anywhere. For sure, Madam Speaker, we have to stop CBC and revert back to 844, then come back, start planning from the initial stage, and then take steps, step by step from ECD or from PP1, going pole until we reach where we are supposed to. But forcing CBC now, it will be a nightmare. We are talking about teachers, they are not there, or yes, one teacher, and we are being promised that after 5 years, we will have enough teachers. That will not work because already the students are in school learning. Are we treating our kids as guinea pigs? Of course, we are not ready to treat to use our kids as guinea pigs. We have to revert back to 844 and restart again if surely this country is ready to embrace CBC. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Mhaya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would wish to give a few points that I think maybe can benefit us and everyone and all Kenyans about CBC. That this motion was brought by Hon Kaluma, I want to thank him, so that a discussion can ensure. I would wish to say that there are 4 points around which now members are focusing on. There are those members who are talking about the ability to stop CBC and go back to 844. I would wish to plainly explain to the country as a teacher and an educationist that the CBC has been around for 9 years. And when we'll be making our final deliberations on CBC, we should understand that it began 9 years ago. And that students went through what was called PP1, PP2, and all the way now, they are in the so-called, they're in the junior second school. And therefore, if you completely rub it to today, it means that these students will completely be wasted because they never did 844, and them going back to 844 will be extremely difficult for them to undertake again. So as we make our final resolutions, we should actually put that in consideration, that these are population of students whom we must take care. And it's very important that we deal with the matter at hand. In fact, as we agree that there's a crisis in this particular area, but deal with it diligently so as not to waste our whole population of students who are in school. There is the issue also, Honorable Speaker, of the teachers. And members are grappling over why should one class have one teacher, and can it work or can it work not? I would wish to explain, Honorable Speaker, that the working of the primary school sector curriculum is different from the one of the second school. In the primary schools, teachers are taught to teach many subjects, and therefore you can provide one teacher for one class, and sometimes they are able to model around and succeed. But once we have CBC, which is bringing junior second school education, then the calculation of the number of teachers, Honorable Kaluma, must now go to what we call the curriculum-based establishment. In a curriculum-based establishment, you look at the curriculum vis-a-vis the combination of the subjects of the teachers who are in school, and you are able to calculate a certain ratio of the number of teachers who will be in school. If we go that direction, then everything is wrong, Honorable Kaluma, about the number of teachers in school, because it can never be one. There should be a number of teachers based on the curriculum-based establishment of every school, and also based on the number of subjects that are being offered. I hear there are 14, they have been reduced to 12, and so on and so forth. So the solution lies in going the CBE way, and that would mean employment of more teachers in our schools. Honorable Speaker, the CBC is certainly having a number of challenges, ranging from those that concern infrastructure and the ones that have been raised by members of Parliament today. But I want to believe that we really must, as Kenyans, take responsibility. There is even a risk of my government, which I serve now, the Kenya Kwanza, easily saying that this system was brought by the previous government. If we go that direction, we shall kill the students who are in school. We must inherit this problem. In fact, in the way it is, we know it was implemented in a hurry, and you remember, honorable members, this is one of the projects that made some Kenyans go home completely. You remember people like Honorable Sosion, who were completely against this system. They had to pay the price of not supporting this particular system. And it was still thrashed to us. So we have to carry it and see how we can remodel it in order to move forward without killing the students who are in the schools. Honorable Speaker, there's the issue of the teachers. It is very easy to want to blame the teacher for having tried to cook chicken or trying to do what, or even trying to bring a desk or trying to send students home for something. But let me tell this House that teachers have been left alone. Nobody is talking about CBC. The minister is not giving instruction, neither is anybody giving proper instruction to the teachers. And the teachers of this country have been left with students to make a decision on how to proceed with the students who are above them. And you will not even surprised to hear at one time that some students may be called upon to teach other students because of what we have. So my proposal to deal with CBC is funding, funding, funding. Let this House give funds for teachers. We employed 70,000 teachers more. They will take care of this situation. If you employ 70,000, no noise will be there. And you build laboratories, no noise will be there, and we shall move forward. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. As I see my time is gone.
Honorable Tonkei, not in the House. Honorable Nyikal, not in the House. Member for Kipkelion East, Honorable Cherorot.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wonder if the country has got the capacity to run the CPC. I think all the idea was rushed because we were supposed to have time and find out the nitty-gritties, the advantages and the disadvantages. Madam Speaker, the position that we are in now, even the task force was formed up to actually implementing the CPC thing. So the problem that we have and the challenge that the parents have is the price that they are paying, because it is very expensive to run the CPC. The challenge, I was on Sunday, I went around my constituency, Madam Speaker, and the big problem, we still have so many students who have not been admitted to the JSS, the junior secondary school. There is no facilities, there is no structures, proper structures. So the problem is that it is a very expensive exercise where the parents actually, or our parents are feeling the burden. As members of parliament, me personally, I want to say that we have a big problem in this country. When it comes to even downloading the lessons and the teaching materials, it is also not easy because most of our areas have not been covered with the internet and even the electricity. Like in my constituency, we have the lower part of Inderiot and even Masamboric where there is no electricity, Madam Speaker. This challenge, Madam Speaker, we have to look at it keenly and make sure that if the government wants to continue with this CPC thing, then they have to fund it and make sure that there is enough funding to our schools. If we can have a look at it, especially the structures that are supposed to be there, they are not there. So the big problem that we have is that as members of parliament, we have to come up clearly and make sure that in future, such decision will not be made abruptly without considering the structures and even the funding or the financial part of it. Madam Speaker, I know the idea was good, but the challenge is that do we have capacity as a country? So mine is to say that we need to go back, and we go back to 844 system, even though I know the challenge that our students are going to face, because most of them have been taken through. So the only thing is that we have to come up together with a solution and make sure that that solution will help our parents, it will help our schools, and even the future of those students. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I know, honorable members, many are coming here to ask whether this motion will be there tomorrow. I want to make it clear it will not be, because this is an adjournment motion. It will only be debated today. Member for Kisauni, Honorable Rashid Bedzimba.
Asante sana, Madam Speaker. Nilikuwa nimeomba nafasi ya kuzungumzia hasa ile marekebisho ya katiba na kanuni za bunge, lakini sikupata fursa, lakini na imani kesho Mungu akijalia tutaweza pata nafasi hiyo, kwa sababu iko muhimu kwamba hasa tukiona CDF inaweza kuingia katika shida, ni vyema tuzungumze ule ukweli. Basi
Mheshimiwa, nakupa hakikisho kwamba huo mswada bado utaendelea kesho na hauna mwisho wa masaa, kwa hivyo mtapata nafasi sawa ya kuweza kujadili.
Nimekushukuru kwa taratibu, Mheshimiwa Madam Speaker. Kuhusu swala la CBC, kwa kweli Mheshimiwa Speaker, taifa halijakuwa tayari kwa haya mageuzi ya elimu. Halijakuwa tayari kabisa. Ukiangalia zile shule zilizochaguliwa kuwa na junior secondary ni chache ukilinganisha na wanafunzi ambao ni wengi zaidi. Walimu waliochaguliwa ni wachache ukilinganisha na shule na wanafunzi. Fedha pia hakuna za kuwezesha mchakato huu kuendelea kikamilifu. Ukiangalia shule zote hazina mahabara. Na hiyo CBC haiwezi kukamilika bila mahabara. Wazazi wanaumia kifedha kupeleka watoto wao kwa junior secondary, wanaambiwa wabadilishe uniform zao, wanaambiwa waende na madawati. Kila siku kuna mambo mapya, inakuwa ni vigumu kutekeleza swala hili. Kwa hivyo mimi nasema, na wengi wa wajumbe hapa wamezungumzia kwamba swala hilo bado serikali halijakuwa tayari. Sasa tusiwe tu tunazungumza, tuwe itatekelezeka, kwamba kwa sababu ya wingi waliokataa lisimame. Na sisi hatumpingi aliyeanzisha swala hili. Hata mimi namwombea Mheshimiwa Magoha alale pema peponi, lakini kwa sasa serikali haijakuwa tayari na jambo hili, kwa sababu kila siku mnasikia serikali ikisema hawana fedha. Na kama hawana fedha, wale watoto watasomea wapi? Kila shule nitakana taratibu liko iongezwe madarasa, madawati, na ukiangalia hazina za NGCDF mpaka leo hazijatoa hata ndururu ya maendeleo. Sasa hizo madarasa zitaongezeka wapi? Kwa hivyo mimi nasimama kuungana na wenzangu na pinga hili jambo kuendelea. Turudi katika mfumo wa zamani, halafu huko mbele tukiwa tayari tutaweza kuingia. Na mimi nasema nitoe nafasi